The first time Joseph woke drenched in sweat, he was convinced it had been a nightmare. But when he rubbed his eyes, the sunlight streaming through the cracks of his small room seemed too vivid, too bright to be anything but real. He clutched the bed covers tightly, staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of a dream that refused to leave him. It was a dream of wheat fields bending, not in the wind, but toward him, while his brother's sheaves lay scattered on the ground, bowing in silent submission. Joseph blinked, thinking it absurd. How could such a dream mean anything? His father, Jacob, however, was not dismissive. When Joseph recounted every detail, the man's face betrayed a flicker of fear beneath the veneer of calm. "Dreams," Jacob said softly, "sometimes speak truths our hearts cannot yet understand. Guard this one, my son. Guard it well." But even as Jacob's voice lingered in the quiet, Joseph felt a shiver of unease. There was a weight in the dream that he could not shake, a whispering of consequences yet to unfold. At breakfast, the atmosphere was tense, though no one admitted it. Joseph's brothers exchanged glances that were sharper than knives. He noticed how they avoided his eyes, the way their laughter seemed forced, hollow. There was envy in the air, an invisible current that seemed to push him, nudge him, toward some unspoken danger. Joseph, with the innocence of youth, didn't understand the full measure of what stirred beneath their gazes. He only knew he was different, destined for something that no one could name aloud without trembling. Days passed, and Joseph's dreams multiplied, each more vivid than the last. He dreamed of stars and planets bending toward him, of rivers parting and letting him walk unharmed while others struggled in the currents. He tried to keep these visions to himself, fearing his father's initial caution would turn into disapproval. But his brothers were relentless. It was on a market day, in the bustling center of their town, that everything changed. Joseph's father had sent in a check on the trade of livestock, a simple errand, yet one that would shape the course of his life. His brothers, envious beyond reason, saw opportunity in his absence from the household. They whispered in dark corners, plotting, scheming, their words like venom seeping into cracks of Joseph's unsuspecting life. "Why should he dream as if he's better than us?" they hissed, their voices dripping with malice. "We will show him his place." Joseph returned oblivious, carrying small trinkets and coins from a market. The sun was setting, bathing the hills in orange fire, and he paused for a moment to breathe in the beauty of the day. That pause, that one fleeting second, was all the space his brothers needed. They struck with the precision of cold-blooded intent, dragging him into a nearby pit, their faces masked of hatred and jealousy. Joseph's heart pounded in his chest, not out of fear but confusion. "What? Why?" he gasped, struggling against their grip. The pit was dark, suffocating, the stones beneath him pressing into his back as he fell. They looked down at him, their shadows looming over his small body. "We're not killing you," one brother said with a twisted grin, "but we'll sell you. You're better off with traders than living among us." And so they did. Traders from a distant land, strangers with heavy eyes and sharper teeth, pulled Joseph from the pit and took him far from home, far from the dreams he barely understood, far from the family whose love had always been tangled with resentment. In Egypt, Joseph's world became a labyrinth of uncertainty. He was sold to Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, whose house was both luxurious and dangerous. Joseph had never seen wealth like this. Silks, gold, servants moving with quiet precision. But he also had never felt so powerless. Every morning he rose with the sun, performing tasks that seemed endless, and every night he returned to a small room that smelled faintly of spices and fear. But Joseph was resilient. He had dreams, and even here they hummed beneath his ribs, insisting on life, insisting on meaning. Potiphar's wife noticed him quickly. He was young, handsome in a quiet way, with eyes that held both defiance and humility. She began to tempt him, speaking softly at first, and then with growing insistence, trying to lure him into a world of compromise. Joseph resisted, his conscience a fortress built of faith and principle. But resistance comes with consequences. One evening, when he turned away from her advances, she screamed, accusing him of deeds he had never committed. Potiphar, torn between loyalty and fear, listened to his wife. And suddenly Joseph, the dreamer, the boy who saw the world in visions, found himself thrown into the dungeons. The prison was dark and damp, the air thick with the smell of despair. Joseph counted days in the same way a bird might count seasons, by the subtle changes in light and shadow. He helped other prisoners when he could, interpreting their dreams with uncanny accuracy, and slowly, whispers of his gift spread through the stone corridors. But even as his reputation grew, the loneliness clawed at him. He thought of his father, of the faces of his brothers, of the wheat fields and stars bowing his dreams, and he wept silently. Years passed in that dark place, yet Joseph never stopped dreaming. One night, as he lay on the cold stone, two men were brought to prison, Pharaoh's cupbearer and baker, each trembling under the weight of their own anxiety. Joseph listened to their confessions and, with a clarity that startled even him, interpreted their dreams. "You will rise," he told the cupbearer, "and the baker will not." And the events unfolded exactly as Joseph predicted. When the cupbearer was restored to his position, he promised to remember Joseph. But promises, Joseph would soon learn, are fragile as glass. The years turned into a blur of shadows and whispers, until one night, Pharaoh himself was troubled by dreams no one could explain. None of his advisers could speak with certainty, and desperation clawed at the corners of his court. Then a voice remembered Joseph. The cupbearer, long silent, finally spoke, recounting the boy in the dungeon who could read the language of dreams. Pharaoh summoned Joseph, and suddenly the boy who had been sold into slavery stood in the presence of the most powerful man in the world. Joseph's heart raced. The dreams that had haunted him since childhood now converged into a single, overwhelming truth. Pharaoh spoke of visions of 7 fat cows devoured by 7 thin ones, of 7 healthy ears of grain consumed by 7 thin, withered ones. Joseph listened, the weight of destiny settling on his shoulders. And then, with a calm born of years of solitude and reflection, he spoke. "Your dreams," he said, voice steady, "are not warnings but a plan. 7 years of abundance will come, followed by 7 years of famine, so severe that the land will hunger for relief. But there is a way to prepare." Pharaoh's eyes widened, and a rare smile broke across his face. "Can you truly save Egypt from this fate?" he asked. Joseph nodded. "If we store the surplus wisely, the nation will survive." And so Joseph rose, not as a prisoner, not as a boy betrayed by his brothers, but as a savior of a kingdom. He organized, he strategized, he became a figure of authority and wisdom, a beacon in a world that had long been dark. But even as Egypt prospered, the shadows of his past remained. He often wondered about his family, what they had become, if they suffered as much as he once had, if they even remembered the boy they had cast away. Then one day, when the famine spread to neighboring lands, men came to Egypt seeking grain. Among them were familiar faces, weathered and older, yet unmistakable. Joseph's heart stopped. It was them, his brothers, kneeling before him, eyes wide with fear and recognition. And in that instant, Joseph faced a choice heavier than any prison, deeper than any dream. Could he forgive the ones who had betrayed him? Could he reveal himself without unleashing the pain of the past? Or would vengeance, long simmering in the depths of his heart, finally find its voice? He looked at them, the weight of years pressing down, and the story paused in that breathless moment, where forgiveness and wrath teetered on the edge. For Joseph, the dreamer, destiny was no longer a mystery. It was a test. And the next choice he made would ripple far beyond the walls of Egypt, shaping the fates of his family, the kingdom, and the very course of history. But what he decided, and how his brothers would respond, would be the question that haunted the land and the hearts of men for generations.